I founded Proteus Gowanus 9 years ago, I felt that art had become compartmentalized and disconnected from the world. It was as if some essential cultural connection had become unraveled. At Proteus Gowanus, we reconnect art to the world by blurring the lines between art and other disciplines and between artists and non-artists. All of our exhibits of art, artifacts, and books are created by a collaborative group of artists, educators, writers, urban planners, historians, and workers in other disciplines. It is a group thinking or knowledge-seeking process. The Gowanus Canal has always been our muse. We're named after the Greek sea god of change and the canal, which has provided us with a spectacular array of things to inspire us. Its remarkable history, its embattled ecology, its dramatic post-industrial landscape, and its intense light, which thus far has been unchanged since the 19th century. Our gallery is housed in a 1900 box factory right across the Union Street Bridge, and we invite you to visit our Hall of the Gowanus, the only museum of the Gowanus Canal. Many of our projects grow out of conversations we have with visitors to the gallery, and one visitor told us that the culminating moments of the Battle of Brooklyn, as you heard earlier, happened a stone's throw from our gallery. We were shocked that this hugely important moment in history seemed all but forgotten, so we created a project called Battle Pass. It's a collective of artists, educators, and performers who try to draw parallels between past and present, explore conflict and memory, and try to look at imagery that has become almost cliche with overuse and manipulation in new ways. For instance, artist Eva Mellis's delicate porcelain pistol lies on a pillow that she fabricated as if it's been sleeping for centuries. Eva's ships made of garbage were inspired by the more than 400 ships that came into the harbor during the battle, looking like a forest of trees and causing widespread terror. Another artist, Robin Love, created a project where she invited people to make cockades that were worn on the hats of revolutionaries during the battle. She invited them to write contemporary rebel slogans on their cockades. And in this installation, she used a line from Walt Whitman's poem. It reads, "Give me your hand, old revolutionary." My public art installation, which is currently at the corner of Smith and Bergen Streets, was inspired by ship masts that were planted in the ground by revolutionaries as a symbol of resistance. It's a 16-foot mahogany pole with directional signs and a weather vane on top. I burned the text from Whitman's poem into the signs, and they read, "In the midst of you, pavements and stately houses disappear. Do you hear the clank of the muskets pouring about me here on every side?" Many of the Battle Pass projects were called revolutions, and referring to the circular nature of the word revolution, and to the fact that history often repeats itself, especially if it's forgotten. Paul Benny, a performer, created a performance around my pole. He invited commuters coming out of the F train stop at rush hour to engage in a mock battle. The commuters looked very surprised. There's a sense of irony and loss in Robert Gould's huge painting, an image of 4th Avenue, a battle site, overlaid with a willow tree. He wrote the names of the Maryland soldier farm boys who were slaughtered during the battle on each leaf of the willow tree. We created an exhibit at the end of the Battle Pass year called Battleground and invited more artists to exhibit. Rob Gould's pinhole camera photographs of battle sites peer into the past. Katerina Jaranek created a book with photographs of Trader Joe's at the corner of Court and Atlantic Avenue, where George Washington is said to have stood. Her image of the flagpole on top of Trader Joe's shows the height of Fort Ponkeysburg Hill, which once stood there. The text on Eva Mellis's coffee cups speak of contemporary battles. And Christina Kelly cataloged the landscape of the battle and incorporated a beautiful installation in an old library card cabinet. This drawer is entitled Wetlands. The first submarine was invented during the Battle of Brooklyn. It was called the Turtle, and its mission was a failure. It tried to blow up a British ship. Artist Duke Riley recreated the turtle and called it the Acorn. He pedaled it out and got within yards of the British ship, the Queen Mary, and was, needless to say, arrested. And this is a small pirate who's viewing Duke Riley's video at our gallery. And now Angela Kramer is going to speak about, she's the Battle Pass educator, and she's going to speak about her tide mill project.
Thank you. As part of the Battle Pass project, I researched the Battle of Brooklyn, and I discovered that Proteus Gowanus sits on the site of one of the battle's most harrowing moments. Back in 1776, the only place to cross the Gowanus Creek was at Brower's Mill, which was a tide mill that sat not too far from where the Union Street Bridge is today. During the battle, at some point during the battle, this bridge burned, forcing soldiers into the rising waters of the Gowanus Creek. Many of them did not make it across. After I learned this story, I wanted to know more about the tide mills that were once here in Brooklyn. This is what the Union Street Bridge looks like today. This is what it looked like back in 1776. The building in the foreground is Brower's Mill, also known sometimes as Freak's Mill, which was built by Adam Brower in the mid-17th century. There were once tide mills all over New York City. The mills used the power of the rising and falling tide to grind wheat into flour. This is a photograph of the last tide mill standing in Brooklyn. It was on Garretson Creek until about 1935 when it was destroyed by fire. Unfortunately, the tide mills of New York are largely forgotten. This is an original millstone that was used as a paver in Astoria, Queens. So our question at Proteus Gowanus was, how do we use art to restore the memory of a past that's so often forgotten, to restore the memory of a landscape that's been so dramatically altered? My friend Ayman Deagle and the Gowanus Canal Conservancy had done some balloon mapping of the area using cameras attached to helium balloons to take high-quality, low-altitude photographs of the area. Ayman overlaid one of these photographs with information from the 18th century Ratzer map of Brooklyn, which showed the approximate location of Brower's Mill and his house. Turns out Brower's house was right in the middle of our alleyway at Proteus Gowanus. So we had an idea to paint his house in the middle of our alley. Now when you go to Proteus Gowanus, you enter through the imaginary doorway of this 17th century house. The alley project was part of a larger installation I created last spring called the Millology project. Millology is the science of mills. As part of this Millology project, I had an idea that it would be fun to paint tide markings on the side of the Gowanus to show folks that the tide still rises and falls on the Gowanus Canal, and it does. You can see it out there. Of course, standing in a canoe, stenciling numbers on the side of the Gowanus Canal with spray paint is not as easy as it sounds. But it worked. You can see here, here are the numbers at low tide, and here they are, mostly invisible, at high tide. Unfortunately, one thing I did not anticipate was that these numbers were soon obscured by sludge, so it only lasted for a few weeks. On a happier note, we discovered that people really enjoy grinding wheat into flour with a mortar and pestle. This was a very popular activity. We also had a tide mill workshop, giving children a chance to design and test their own mill wheels. At Proteus Gowanus, we're always trying to find a way to connect the arts to other disciplines, to draw connections between the present and the past. I'd like to leave you with this last slide, which shows one such connection. This is a tidal turbine being lowered into the East River to see if tidal energy could once again return to New York City. Thank you very much.